You're listening to Culture 360, the podcast that takes you inside the world of workplace and team culture. I'm Stu Savage, your host and guide, as we explore the ideas, people, and stories shaping the way we work, lead, and connect. So please subscribe, sit back, relax, and enjoy culture from every angle. Hello, and welcome back to the Culture 360 podcast, Culture from Every Angle, in association with the Culture Room. I'm Stu Savage, your host and founder of the Culture Room and Culture 360. This is episode 6, Smart People, Emotional Reactions, Broken Cultures. Today's episode's a little bit different. It's our first monologue, a short, focused reflection designed to listen to while you're either driving, walking, at the gym, or just taking a moment out of your busy day. And today we're going to talk about something that sits at the center of every culture issue I see in organizations, and that's people. But more specifically, how we think, how we react, how we behave, and how that shapes culture. Why do intelligent people sometimes behave irrationally? Why conflict escalates faster than it should? Why emails get misread? Why emotions show up at work even when we pretend they shouldn't? And at the heart of all this is one thing, our brains. So today I wanted to bring together 3 powerful thinkers. Firstly, Dr. Steve Peters from 2012 and his work, The Chimp Paradox. Secondly, Dan Goleman, earlier 1995, and his work on EQ, more commonly known as emotional intelligence. And finally, Sam Harris, the American neuroscientist, and his insights into the mind and self-awareness. And then I'll link all these ideas back to culture and what this means for leaders, teams, and organizations. Honestly, I wish I'd understood this about 20, 25 years ago, but here we are now, so let's get into it. The chimp, the human, and the computer. One of the most useful psychological models I've ever come across was from Dr. Steve Peters, who's a sports psychiatrist and worked with Sir Chris Hoy, the cyclist, Victoria Pendleton, and the England football team. He explains that we all have 3 systems operating in our brain. Firstly, you have the chimp, which is the limbic center. This is your emotional brain. It's fast, reactive, and impulsive. Its job's survival, not leadership. Your chimp jumps to conclusions. It detects threats, even when they're not real, gets defensive, personalizes things, catastrophizes, reacts before you can think. If you've ever sent an email and later regretted it, yep, that was your chimp. If you've ever read a message and immediately felt attacked, a hostile email, for example, that was your chimp. If you walked out of a meeting or something similar and think, why did I react like that? Yeah, that's your chimp. But your chimp's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just emotional. The second system is the human. This is your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex. It's calm, logical, and reflective. Your human can pause. It can listen. It can problem solve. It can choose its response. But here's the catch. The human's slow, much slower than the chimp. And when you're triggered, your human goes offline. A bit like the old internet dial-up if you're old like me. Which is why your emotional reaction shows up first. The chimp is 5 times stronger than the human, and this is why the pause matters. The third system is the computer. This stores your habits, your beliefs, your fears, your emotional patterns, and your past experiences. When something triggers you, your chimp checks into the computer for confirmation. And this all happens in about 1/5 of a second. And that's why reaction feels instant. They're not conscious choices, they're patterns. And this explains about 80% of our workplace behavior. So why does this matter for culture? So let's zoom out. A workplace is essentially dozens, hundreds, if not thousands of chimps interacting with other chimps, all running different computers and different humans, often before the human brain has even woke up. This explains why conflict escalates, why feedback feels personal in a performance review, for example, why communication breaks down, why emotions run hot under pressure. It's not because people are difficult, it's because they're human. Workplaces constantly trigger our chimps, and then we act surprised when emotional behavior shows up. But once you understand this model, culture becomes far easier to work with. As one guest on the podcast, James Nelson, in episode 4 pointed out, seek to understand before judgment or control. And Rob Watson in episode 2 said, always ask why. Think about the behaviors underneath. There's always something underneath the behavior lurking in the corner. In the second piece, emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ. Self-awareness first. This is where Dan Goleman works on emotional intelligence fits in. He identified a number of core pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation or emotional regulation, social awareness, communication, and relationship management. And the key point is this: self-awareness comes first. You can't regulate what you don't recognize, and you can't change a behavior you don't notice, and you can't manage your chimp if you don't realize it's driving the car. Organizations and workplaces love communication training. They love feedback frameworks. But without self-awareness, none of it sticks. I'm sure you can think of some examples of poor leadership, poor management in the past of places where you've worked, whether it was years and years ago or more recently. Emotional intelligence is not about expressing everything you feel. It's about not letting emotion run the organization. Emotions are real and they are valid, but they're signals, not instructions, and they are data, not directives. I do see culture work focusing very much on emotions sometimes, and some of this is really good work. But building on emotions alone does have a number of flaws and loopholes. Emotions can't run the organization, and you shouldn't build your organization on emotion. Self-awareness puts responsibility back where it belongs. Goleman reminds us that emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness, not self-expression. Emotions are real and valid, but they're signals, not demands. In workplaces, culture breaks down when people expect organizations, managers, or colleagues to manage their feelings for them, to keep them happy, motivated, recognized, and energized at all times. Self-awareness flips that responsibility back where it belongs. It allows us to notice what we're feeling, understand why it's there, and choose how or whether to act on it. Emotional regulation doesn't mean ignoring emotion. It means not letting it run the organization. When people manage themselves first, communication improves, relationships stabilize, and culture becomes a shared responsibility rather than an emotional negotiation. As well as the workplace, maybe we should be teaching this in schools too, just food for thought. You are not your thoughts and feelings. This brings us to Sam Harris, the American neuroscientist, author, and host of the Waking Up podcast. I've listened and read a lot around Sam, and he reminds us of something deeply important. You don't choose your first thought. You don't choose your first emotional reaction. They simply appear as if they are you, and you get tangled up with them. You bounce from one thought to the next, and one dominant thought to the next. But where do they come from, and where do they go? But, and this is key, you do choose what happens next. Harris encourages us to notice thoughts and emotions rather than becoming them, to observe instead of react. You are the observer, not the thinker. And in that space, even a small one, we regain control. Control over how we communicate, control over how we behave, and ultimately control over culture. This is self-awareness in action. Harris is a big advocate for meditation and mindfulness, and allowing you to recognize your thoughts and feelings just as that, thoughts and feelings. Watch them come and go. But here's the truth. Culture is emotional, but emotions cannot lead. Culture breaks down when reactions override reflection, feelings override facts, and chimps override humans. A healthy culture doesn't eliminate emotion. It recognizes it and manages it. It creates space to feel, and even more space to think. A regulated culture beats an emotional one every time. So how about some practical tools we can use day to day? So let's get practical. First, understand your own brain. We all have one. You live in it every day, but most of us were never taught how it works. So hopefully this podcast will help, and you might do some further reading and further listening. What's going on in there in terms of the processes, and how can you manage it to help you? Second, pause and name the emotion or the feeling. Ask yourself, what am I feeling and why? What's underneath? Is this my chimp or my human? Naming reduces the intensity. So if you name the feeling or emotion, you can generally get to grips with it and give yourself some space. Third, ask, what would the best version of me do here? What's the best form of action or behavior that you can take? Fourth, slow things down. You don't always have to reply to difficult emails and messages immediately. You can reflect and take time out. Ask clarifying questions, just so you understand what's going on. Assume less. Also, in leadership, leaders matter in the workplace and in teams. When leaders say, let me think about that, I'll come back to you, or they reflect, this shows emotional maturity. And good culture follows good behavior. So in closing, here's an invitation for you. Culture is not just strategy, policy, and process in the workplace or in teams. Culture is partly human psychology, the way we think and the way we behave individually, in groups, or in tribes. When we understand the chimp, the human, and the computer within each of us, we create workplaces where people feel safer, more connected, more understood, and more effective. I hope this podcast has been insightful and provocative for you. Be sure to check out the associated blog for this podcast on the Culture Room website under Culture 360. I'm Stu Savage. This is Culture 360, culture from every angle. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the Culture 360 podcast, and like me, you geek out on leadership and organisational culture, then please smash a like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Also, if you have any feedback or ideas, or you'd like to get in touch, then please connect with the Culture Room at the.cultureroom.co.nz or on our various social media platforms. Thanks for listening.